the root of all illness is lack of forgiveness, and the beginning of all healing begins with forgiveness. It's at what level are you forgiving? Are you forgiving at the surface level where you're just saying words? Or are you forgiving at the level of the soul? And is the forgiveness rising from a deep peace inside of you, where you're forgiving soul to soul, while saying no to unacceptable actions? So it's this forgiveness issue is a deep issue and an invitation to all of us to clear any issue that holds us back from being able to forgive wholesomely and wholeheartedly and from the deepest soul level. So it's really such a time where forgiveness is needed in our world.
Yeah.
But it's at what level are you forgiving? Speaking words to avoid feeling something? Or are you going to come to a place of peace? When I got the tumor in 1992 and was diagnosed with this basketball-sized tumor, I was aware of what was going on in the field of cellular healing and aware of all of the work going on in the field of cellular healing, and that science was saying that when you feel a strong emotion and you repress it, it releases a quantifiable biochemistry into your bloodstream, which goes to those cell receptors and blocks them, rendering those cells incapable of communicating with the rest of the cells in the body. And if over time illness happens, it happens there. And conversely, that when we feel our emotions very openly and freely, our cell receptors remain open. And so I knew that part of my healing journey would lay in uncovering the cell memories that were stored inside that tumor. But at that point, no one had given us a method. And I got to tell you something, you can understand and know all the science on the planet. You can understand how this programming gets passed on from one cell generation to the next. But unless you have a method, it's no more than a bunch of, scientific data on a page and some, very exciting possibilities. And that's where I stood. And I can remember being spontaneously guided inside that tumor. And this cell memory I uncovered was a cell memory of childhood abuse. And I grew up in a very domestically challenged household, which was extremely violent. And of course, being a therapist in life, I'd gone not only through 8 years of therapy in New York on this whole, physical abuse, sexual abuse on all levels, but I'd also done so much work as a therapist, working with this whole issue. And I thought I had come to a place of complete acceptance and understanding of the abuse that had happened in my life. So my first reaction in spontaneously uncovering this memory of childhood abuse was, I thought, it cannot be this memory. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt on the abuse situation. I've so since handled that. And my know-it-all thinking mind was saying that, but my heart and my body were saying, well, you may think that you've handled it, but you haven't really. And I thought, okay, what have I got to lose? I'll undergo a process like so many others where I'm releasing all the stored pain. And at the end of the process, I arrived at the same place of acceptance that I had been at for all these years. And I asked the peace inside the room that I was just being carried in, am I complete? And this simple word, no, arose. And I immediately thought, you know what? I don't even believe this is the right cell memory. And even if it is, I don't have a clue how to complete. And something inside of me just gave up. And I just let go. And I fell from this desperation and devastation into a deep peace that was omnipresent. And a prayer arose, please, somehow let me be guided to complete with this whole issue of childhood abuse. I actually didn't expect an answer. But then, at an unexpected moment, forgiveness arose. And immediately I thought, what kind of difference could forgiveness make? I've so long since come to acceptance. And my mind was saying that. But my body and my soul were saying, you can't afford not to forgive. And so I attempted to open my heart and forgive. And it hurt. Because you see, I had created this whole identity of compassionate, understanding Brandon, the therapist who had nobly come to understand her violent past. And I had to step down off my own self-made pedestal and face down 30 years of pride, dressed up as compassion. And it hurt to face down that much pride. But I finally did. And when I finally cracked open and wholehearted forgiveness came, I realized that that tumor had never been clinging to me. I'd been clinging to it. And 30 years of a blame game, dressed up as compassion and understanding, but 30 years of my blame game, it was finally over. And that became the catalyst for the true healing of my tumor. But there's a big difference between lip service, speaking forgiveness, and in my case, really totally surrendering and opening my heart and facing down the 30 years of pride and forgiving wholeheartedly. And it was an interesting thing. It was 3 months after I healed from the tumor. And I ended up calling my mom up and saying, Mom, by the way, I had a life-threatening tumor. It's over. I've healed, not to worry. And put the phone down. And about 3 weeks later, my mother comes from an Austrian background. She calls me up and she goes, Brandon, I don't know what has happened to you, but somehow I feel that you have become a holy person. I feel so much peace in your presence. Can I come out to Malibu where your house is and sit on the deck and look out at the ocean with you? Now, if you knew my mother, she was a bulldozing bully, and obviously a lot of the physical abuse had come from her. And she was a very violent woman, even up until the day, she died. She was a big bulldozing woman. And I thought, when I put the phone down, you know what? I haven't suddenly become a holy person. It's just that somehow through the ethers, my mom got it, that I had forgiven her. And that's because there's a big difference between accepting what's happened and truly, wholeheartedly forgiving. And when I wholeheartedly forgave her, somehow she got it. And we were able to spend the next 23 years of our lives in a love affair, where I was able then to love my mom and to receive her love. Unfortunately, the rest of my siblings didn't have that ability because they didn't have the journey. So I really feel that the journey gives us the tools that we need, not only to meet our deepest, darkest issues and free ourselves from them, but to come to a place of wholehearted forgiveness where we are genuinely at peace, so much so that our own friends and family feel that in our presence. And that allowed me to have this love affair with my mom, which I never would have had without that forgiveness. Forgiveness is a very powerful, powerful healer, as long as it's coming from the heart and is wholehearted. Otherwise, it's just words.